Leadership Tango, also known as Embodied Leadership with Tango. Hi, my name is Joseph Roevens and I am a professor of management at NHTV Breda University. And the reason we created this video is that we want to establish that Leadership Tango is really a leadership course. It's not a dance class. Yes, we use some simple movements. Yes, we will be together on this. And yes, we listen to tango music, but essentially it is a leadership course. Now, in order to establish that fact, I will first give you a few of my credentials. Then we'll focus on some best practices in science, for example, leadership theory, the theory of multiple intelligences, and finally, learning theory. So, yes, let's start with this. I went to Cornell. The good thing about Cornell is, or one of the good things, is that I met this man, Dr. Ken Blanchard. Some of you probably know him from the Blanchard and Hersey Situational Leadership model. Well, in 1990, I followed this course on the 1-Minute Manager and also on Situational Leadership. Fast forward into the future. In 2015, I was invited to visit Las Vegas by this very generous person, Tony Hsieh, CEO of Zappos, and he invited me for dinner at Nacho's Daddy, and there I had the great chance of meeting one of my own gurus, namely the famous Brazilian management guru, Ricardo Semler. And both of us were actually asked to guide Zappos with some things that they were doing around participative management and especially about becoming an organization without managers. Now, anyways, between 1990 and meeting Ken Blanchard and then 2015, I've done a few other things like lecturing about leadership, coaching leaders, and working a lot also with students. So again, this is a leadership course. It's not a dance class. And as promised, we will first look a little bit into leadership theory. And for that, I've got 3 topics. The first one is a very, very brief overview from the great man theory to servant leadership, and then going to something much more popular today called followership. Secondly, I'll briefly say that leadership and management are actually the same thing, although over the years people have decided to separate them. And then finally, we can ask ourselves, is management, is leadership really about planning, coordinating, organizing, and controlling, like Fayol, Drucker, and other management gurus claim? Well, let's start with the very beginning. This is a copy of the Meditations written by Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius Antoninus. He was reigning a little bit after the birth of Christ, and this person, this CEO of the Roman Empire, wrote a book about how to be a good man, how to deal with other people, and also how to run an empire. And his writings are still very accurate today. Once in a while, I read a chapter about it, and when I hear him talk about, well, how it is to deal with difficult people, well, that's a question we're still asking ourselves today. Or how, do I motivate my people? And we're talking again about somebody running a huge empire. Those are, again, questions that we are all facing today. And now, for some of you who've studied leadership, you probably know the various theories. I'm not going to go over them in this video. And many of you are probably also familiar with this. You followed a leadership training, and they start by asking you to fill out a form, where, you know, certain questions are asked and then the computer says, well, you're this type of leader. Famous tests are the MBTI, Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, DISC, Lumina Spark, Belbin, etc., etc. So many of you watching this video and who are currently managing or leading people, you've probably done one of those things, and, you know, good for you. It's definitely one cognitive way of checking what your management or leadership style is. And probably you've done some of this. You know, you've gone on one of those amazing team building thingies where you're in a boat and, you know, you make sure you arrive somewhere on time, or you've been more creative, you know, playing with these with sticks and doing something. I mean, all these things are highly entertaining. And well, to finish off with something really great, it's maybe you've done some Maori dancing and learning the haka, and at the end of the whole thing you had to do, you know, fun, great. I think all of that is highly entertaining leadership courses, but at the same time, I sometimes doubt where the transfer is to everyday leadership or everyday management. And I think in the Leadership Tango course, we actually do a very good job on making that transfer. This is a quote from Henry Mintzberg. And I'm not going to say too much about leadership and management, but for some of you, you may remember there was a time when we called people managers and we weren't upset about it. There was nothing wrong with that word. And then somehow in the 1980s, the word leadership came up via Kotter and some other people. And then basically the idea was, you know, when you're a leader, then you're doing something great and sexy. And if you're doing something boring, you're probably a manager. Now the reality for all of us every day is most of our tasks are repetitive. So most of the time we're managing. And yes, once in a while we have this leadership, and there's nothing wrong with that. So also in this video, I will use both words, manager or leader, and they exactly mean the same thing.